Hello, friends. Good morning and good afternoon. I'm Jeff Miller from ERPA. Thanks for setting aside 45 minutes to join our discussion today. Keep the ERP, enjoy the SaaS, where you're going to learn how PeopleSoft on AWS gives you the best of both worlds. ERPA supports customers throughout their entire life cycle on PeopleSoft, including managed services, modernizing to the cloud, fluid implementation, path to SaaS, projects that require more technical expertise than you might have in-house, and much more. Nearly anything is possible, which is why today is all about the advantages of PeopleSoft on AWS and how to make that happen. A couple of housekeeping matters before we get started. All of your microphones have been muted for this session, but the chat is available for you to engage with us. I'll be monitoring the chat myself for any questions you type in. I'll bring those to my world-class presenter, Shawn, as you type them in. And then following today's discussion, a very brief survey is going to hit your inbox. We'd love for you to fill that out. Take you about 45 seconds to complete it. And then finally, before I turn it over to my world-class presenter, links to the recording and the slide deck will be emailed to you in a few business days for you to review the content or send it to someone else who might find it beneficial. Okay, what's in store for you today is rich information provided by our AWS expert here at ERPA, Shawn Fournier. So Shawn, I think you're already unmuted. If you wouldn't mind, let's take it from here, beginning by introducing yourself and ERPA.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jeff. And good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you for joining. As Jeff said, we're going to talk about maximizing your PeopleSoft investment. The bottom line is PeopleSoft works. And so people want to know how they can get more out of that existing investment. And we're going to share with you how we're helping enterprises and institutions do just that. So before I dive in quickly, again, my name is Shawn Fournier. I'm the AWS Alliance Director at ERPA. All of my contact information will be at the end of this deck, so feel free if you have any questions that were not answered to reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about what we're seeing in the space and how we're helping organizations do the things that we're discussing in terms of keep the ERP and enjoy the SaaS. Before I dive into us, I just want to mention quickly that Jeff alluded to AWS. We are an AWS partner. We're an AWS Advanced Tier Consulting partner. We have AWS certified credentials in education space, education vertical, and Oracle workloads like PeopleSoft. We're also accredited migration partner and on down the line. So multiple accreditations to support the fact that this is a motion that we know and execute well. And at the bottom of your screen on the right side, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we're also a Workday partner. So those are our two key partnerships, AWS and Workday. Within the context of Workday, we are an implementation partner, we are an application managed services or AMS partner, and we're also a Workday Extend partner. And the Workday Extend is an interesting play because it actually allows Workday customers to access native AWS services. So that's where the two kind of link together. But for today's purpose, we're gonna stick very much to how to modernize PeopleSoft leveraging AWS. So with that, I'm going to dive right in. Probably should give you just a quick company overview. ERPA is a managed service provider that's been in business since 1999. So we've been doing this for 25 years. We began as a PeopleSoft consulting firm, which we did really, really well and still do really, really well. And the outcome of that was customers asking us to do more. And so over 2.5 decades, our business has evolved. And today that encompasses a broad set of services. And the reason that's important is because I think it allows us to meet our customers wherever they might be on that journey to better, right? So from the left side of your screen, you'll see that we do advisory services. So if somebody's just starting out, maybe they have a cloud first initiative or a digital modernization initiative, and they don't even know where to start, we can help with advisory services around how to get from where you are to where you want to be, and in some cases even help identify what good looks like in terms of where you want to be. We also provide managed services. We obviously provide cloud services. We provide production support. Functional consulting is something we see a lot around PeopleSoft. When in our definition of functional consulting is really about application outcomes, right? So if you want something out of PeopleSoft that you're not getting today, we have the experts that more than likely have done that for other organizations. And then additionally, we do staff augmentation. So as I mentioned, 25 years in the space. Our predominant market is higher education, although we do have a substantial number of SLG and federal customers. We have a substantial number of commercial customers and a substantial number of healthcare and nonprofit organizations that we serve as well. When it comes to our PeopleSoft experience, I think everybody has to kind of show the logo chart. So these are some of the people that we do business with today. I'll point to a couple of use cases and get a little bit deeper into these as we near the latter part of this deck. But specifically, I think I'll speak to Illinois State University, probably City of Boston, which includes Boston Public Schools, and U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. So we'll walk through those. But the takeaway here is that we've been doing this for a while. We have 500 plus PeopleSoft customers that we've served. We have 400 employees. And I think it's safe to say that we are the largest PeopleSoft consulting firm in terms of supporting staff in North America. So what does that mean? We're here to talk about how to get more out of PeopleSoft, how to keep the ERPA, and how to have a SaaS-like experience. And so I think this is important. It's important to understand how we enable that, right? How do we deliver that? As I mentioned earlier, we're really customer journey focused. So depending on where you are in that process, we can meet you anywhere along the way. That process for us typically, and not always, but typically looks like, in the beginning, an optimization, a licensing assessment, or an OLA. And really what that exercise is about is it's just the first step of due diligence, right? It's let's get our arms around what we have today. Let's understand what we have today so that we can move forward. We do cloud assessment services or cloud readiness assessments. Very, very frequently, we do proof of concepts. We are huge fans or huge believers in demonstrating our value. So I would say that nearly without exception, we're comfortable doing a POC, oftentimes entirely funded by us, so that we can demonstrate to the business or institution what good looks like. I've already mentioned that we're a certified migration partner. We provide managed services. I think the interesting thing or one of the things that I love most about what we do and how we do it is that it's really about once we get the application stack, and in this case, PeopleSoft, to a current or modernized version, where do we go from there, right? What's the business benefit? And so we're doing continuous optimization on the PeopleSoft stack and underlying infrastructure, as well as deploying things like DR as a service. I'm going to highlight just one of these. I'm going to spotlight the OLA because I think it really is oftentimes a great first step of due diligence. So what we do in our OLA is we simply do an assessment of your current technology stack supporting PeopleSoft, and we analyze the utilization of that technology stack. Then we go on and analyze your current licensing construct and analyze the utilization of that construct, as well as give you some insight into any risk that you may need to be aware of for mitigation. We could stop there, but we go one step further and say, look, based on our 25 years of experience in the space, if we owned this app stack, this is how we deploy it. And we provide you literally an architecture of an optimized technology stack supporting PeopleSoft. We provide you an optimized licensing construct for that PeopleSoft stack. And by default, at that point, you have a TCO. And then we'll also add, hey, look, if this is compelling to you, there's an appendix that says, here's a rough order of magnitude of the level of effort that it would take to get from PeopleSoft today to a fully modernized PeopleSoft stack on AWS. And so you have that, and that's all delivered in an executive summary. So an OLA is a really great first place to start. Even if you don't pursue that modernization, it has significant value in helping you to really have a clear understanding of what your technology stack is today, what your licensing construct is today, and what value you're deriving from those. Let's get into PeopleSoft. So when we look at the PeopleSoft landscape, it is diverse, no doubt. But I think the common denominators are rather consistent, right? People are wanting to optimize their costs. They're wanting to ensure that they're compliant, enhance security, and on down the line. We typically see our customers fall into one of four buckets, right? The first one is they're just exploring their options, right? They have maybe some new initiatives within the institution or organization, and they're just trying to figure out how can PeopleSoft contribute to that initiative. Or maybe they're thinking, we're talking about SaaS, we're thinking SaaS. How do we get there? Where does PeopleSoft fit into all of that? Or it may even be a little bit deeper in terms of exploring options. For example, if we are going to go to a modernized PeopleSoft stack, do we do that on AWS? Do we do that on OCI? What about Azure? What about GCP? So all these considerations fall into that exploring options bucket. And really, the opportunity for us to support that motion is in delivering an OLA that we just discussed, or cloud assessment services, or even a proof of concept, right? In the second category, we see people that are committed to PeopleSoft, right? They're like, look, we've had PeopleSoft forever. We've customized it like crazy, and it works. So we're committed to PeopleSoft. And of course, Oracle continues to roll out the support for PeopleSoft, and no doubt they'll likely do that again. But for that group of people that are committed to PeopleSoft, some of the same considerations apply, but they're a little bit more nuanced, right? They want to understand how PeopleSoft fits in or integrates with their cloud-first strategy. They want to continue to optimize and get more out of less. They want to ensure that they're getting the most they can from their database licensing, or perhaps consider alternatives, address staffing challenges, and on down the line. In the third column, people that are committed to SaaS, right? They've decided we're going to go to SaaS. And since Workday's a partner, I'll use them as an example. We have customers that have decided that we are going to Workday, either HCM or financials, but how does PeopleSoft fit into that? And so in that scenario, obviously, we want to enable them in their Workday deployment. But one of the things that we're seeing happen routinely is organizations are taking that PeopleSoft stack, having us move it to AWS, modernize that stack, manage that stack, and in doing so, they can reallocate their best people to their Workday deployment. Meanwhile, they're getting a SaaS-like experience from the PeopleSoft stack, and typically saving money along the way. That could apply to any future Workday deployment. So that's one example we'll talk about a little bit later. And then the last column is organizations that are deployed SaaS, right? So they're fully deployed on Workday. How can AWS enable that? They've done HCM and finance, student maybe down the road. Where do we go from there? And that's similar to the third bucket in that typically we're modernizing PeopleSoft on AWS for them. If there's a TCO, typically a TCO around 30%, we have the ability to bank that for them and then apply that to a future Workday deployment if and when they choose to adopt Workday Student. And along with that, we offer the flexibility to transfer any spend with ERPA from AWS to Workday. So those are the four categories that we see people kind of fall into, no doubt. You fit into one of those, and I'll try to touch each of those along the way as we roll through. But the underlying motion that enables a SaaS-like experience for PeopleSoft is the same, right? There are four basic steps to that process. There's a migration step, right? In order to derive the benefit that we can from AWS technologies, there's migration involved. So that migration is typically a lift and shift with the intent to modernize. We want to keep things simple. We want to keep things stable in that first phase and get the application standing in current version on the optimized technology stack that is delivered by AWS. Once we're there, then it's about maximizing that investment, right? We're there, we ensure that everything is modernized, PUM updates, all that stuff, and ensure primarily that the infrastructure and licensing construct are optimized. With that, then we can start doing the modernization piece, really. And the modernization piece is really about automating tasks, right? How do we deliver that SaaS-like experience? And then we move to optimize. And optimize is maybe not the right term. I prefer to call it continuous improvement because we literally roll through these PeopleSoft stacks quarterly, if not more regularly, depending on customer requirement, but at a minimum quarterly to ensure that we're optimizing and continuing to improve the performance of those stacks. So the business outcomes are fairly simple, right? Once we migrate, there are measurable outcomes immediately. There's improved security, reliability, the ability to scale for things like student enrollment, and we 100% of the time across the board, we've had performance improvements, moving PeopleSoft from on-prem to the AWS cloud. When it comes to maximize the outcomes that we're seeing, compress my migration bubble. And all that means is that migration piece, we'll get into our proprietary automation, but the bottom line is that we can accelerate that migration and close that migration window by more than half of the typical migration time. And so obviously you're not paying for two infrastructures. There's a significant cost reduction in that. We optimize the database licensing, resulting in the reduced TCO. And all of a sudden, because of the technologies that are embedded, we have improved compliance, posture, and minimized risk. On the SaaS-like experience, that's where the managed services come in, right? So essentially, when we say SaaS-like, what I'm thinking in my mind is that it's an application that I can use and it works. I don't have to think about it, right? I don't have to maintain it. I don't have to do anything. I can use it. And that's really what we deliver with managed services and automated operations. It simplifies feature adoption, right? And we have a super flexible support model, meaning there may be aspects of that managed services component that you want to retain in-house, and we're completely comfortable with that. I think one of the cool things about how we deliver managed services is that in order to deliver that SaaS-like experience is slightly different for everyone, slightly nuanced, and ERPA is willing and flexible enough to allow our clients to say, we're going to determine that line of delineation in terms of responsibility, and we're going to tell you exactly what aspects of this you're going to manage for us and exactly which aspects we're going to manage for ourselves. So it's not a square box package. It truly is fit for purpose, customized managed services packages intended to enable your business and empower your business. Once we're there, then it gets fun, right? To optimize or continuous improvement or really innovate. And at that point, we can start doing fun things, right? With a modernized PeopleSoft stack, like deploying chatbots, organizing data, layering in business intelligence and generative AI, right? And building an IoT capability. So there's a lot that we can do once we get to that optimize or continuous improvement or innovate stage. All of that is to do exactly what we started this discussion around, and that's deliver a better PeopleSoft, right? Deliver a SaaS-like experience. One of the things that we're finding very intriguing and very cool is that this has an appeal across the enterprise, right? So I wouldn't say very easy because it's never very easy, but it's very simple to gain support from IT to business. So if we start in the middle, everybody wants an improved TCO. You'll see business examples here shortly with the TCO improvement anywhere from 30% to above 50%. So that's kind of the center block that appeals to both sides of the business, IT and business sides. If we move to the IT side, a SaaS-like experience with PeopleSoft means that you have streamlined operations, right? You're no longer having to patch and break fix, all those types of things. That is all automated through our orchestration tool. You can now nearly one button deploy new environment builds, right? So I don't want to misstate that because it's not a one button deploy, but very rapid environment builds or customizations that accelerates the deployment of new features. And the one that seems to stand out most to our customers is that near zero downtime for routine PeopleSoft maintenance. So I don't know what kind of maintenance windows you're experiencing today. I've heard from hours to literally a day. That just doesn't exist in our PeopleSoft environments, right? It's near zero downtime for routine maintenance. Then on the AWS cloud benefits, specifically the value that we derive from AWS really has to do with the fact that AWS is an $85 billion organization. They have 200 plus fully featured services in their portfolio, and that allows us to leverage their capabilities for things like higher availability, right? So on the IT side, it could be as deep as Oracle RAC on AWS with a FlashGrid cluster, right? So there's a ton of things that we can do leveraging their technologies for high availability, reliability, scalability, and on down the line. I think one of the big standout from our customers' perspective is just a freedom from database audits, right? So we see the majority, I won't say all, but the majority of our clients moving away from Oracle database and adopting similar technologies on AWS, which then eliminates that licensing component and that licensing audit threat. So very appealing on the IT side. If we go back to the TCO savings in the middle and begin to move to the right, you can see how a modernized PeopleSoft stack appeals to the business side as well, right? We do get a SaaS-like experience, right? Which means that there's minimal disruption to users. It's very user-friendly. It's a service that works, period. Increases productivity, right? Because it is a simple service that continues to work, and gives reliable business event performance. That's the one that our clients come back to us most often with, is that I no longer, for example, I no longer have to even think twice about student enrollment, because I just know that you'll scale automatically and support that business event, right? So that's one of the business benefits derived from PeopleSoft on AWS, as well as proactive engagement management. When it comes to business agility, I've already touched on continuous improvement. Obviously, I'm a big fan of that. But feature and functionality adoption is rapid, smoother road mapping and execution, because we're now dealing with very objective measurements. We understand the environment, all of us, right, as a team, both the enterprise and ERPA. So we can strategize together about how to continue to differentiate the business value derived from PeopleSoft for the organization. And in doing so, explore AWS cloud native services beyond ERP. So we've talked about chatbots. We're doing some really cool stuff right now with Gen AI, and I'll give you a business example of that in a minute. But as you can see, this project appeals both to IT and business, and it's far more than just saving dollars. The way that we do this, the enabler for us, is Active Genie. So Active Genie is our proprietary cloud orchestration tool. It's the layer that enables us to deliver the magic. There you can see the AWS qualified software badge. Active Genie's been certified by AWS through a very rigorous foundational technical review. So they're so comfortable with our automation that they've certified it on their platform. We use Active Genie internally, and this is something that we've since deployed to serve our customers. So what are the benefits to our clients that we're sharing with them? I mentioned the condensed migration timelines. So there's a timeline compression for PeopleSoft migrations to AWS, and that compression on average is around 70%. 100% of our customers have reported immediate improvement in performance, leveraging Active Genie automation, faster to deploy new technologies and features. And I've touched on this one as well, a reduction in maintenance windows. So 82% reduction in maintenance window downtime on average. So Active Genie has very real, measurable business outcomes, and those outcomes are facilitated by the screens that you can see on the right, which is how Active Genie presents itself to our customers. So both in the migration phase, the visualization phase, and in the automation phase. So how do we use Active Genie in each of those phases, and what does it do? So in the migration phase, we leverage Active Genie to capture all the application and infrastructure details, right, including utilization, so that we can ensure that we're constructing an optimized tech stack for the application. We leverage Active Genie for the build, so it automates that build deploy, which means that we're eliminating any risk of human error, and we're also accelerating that build time. Automates all the testing for us, and it also automates the deploy. So that's how we're able to reduce that migration timeline by 70%. From a user perspective, Active Genie is also leveraged to visualize, right? So it has application and healthcare performance monitoring, provides all the infrastructure metrics, environmental controls, and on down the line. And then most of all, Active Genie automates. So when it comes to people, tools, and PUM upgrades, automated, built into the platform. Again, that's how we achieve a SaaS-like experience. On-demand scheduled environment controls, auto-scaling for business events, on-demand scheduled and backups, one-click environment refreshes, and on down the line. So it's the automation that's layered onto the AWS platform, delivering the SaaS-like experience for PeopleSoft. So we talked a little bit about innovation, which is really the fun part, right? PeopleSoft is great. It works. Oracle continues to extend support for indefinitely. How do you get more out of the investment? Modernize in AWS, layer in managed services and an automation technology on it. Once we're there, all the PUM updates, all the maintenance, all that stuff becomes routine. It's just part of the service. And then we can start focusing on what are the fun things that we can do beyond PeopleSoft. Now, one example of that is chatbots. So as you can see from the screen here, this is a very light lift and something that we deploy frequently for our clients, chatbots to deliver a better user experience for their employees and customers. One of the other things that we're doing today is Gen AI. So we have a client, this is specifically regarding their financial module, disparate data everywhere. So we've actually built them a custom dashboard leveraging Amazon Q and QuickSight Gen AI capabilities so that they can now aggregate all of those disparate data resources, place them into a depository that can be easily searched and read, and use a natural language inquiry to say, for example, which business unit in the organization had the highest growth year over year. And there it is, right? So no longer are they having to filter through data or spreadsheets to find that information. So the takeaway here is that once we have a modernized PeopleSoft stack, there's a lot of cool things that we can do to add value to the business. So with that, this is where you'll find my contact information. Before I wrap, I just want to give you a couple of real examples, right? I think I'd much rather spend our time here than anywhere else. I mentioned Illinois State University. So Illinois State University is an interesting one. These guys were sitting on OCI, so they're an Oracle customer, but they were having service outages. They were unable to scale efficiently for peak demand times. The resource availability was inconsistent. They really didn't have a DR, right? But they didn't want to get rid of PeopleSoft. So they came to us and said, okay, we're committed to, they were in that bucket of we're committed to PeopleSoft, but it's not meeting our expectations. So we came in, stabilized their PeopleSoft on AWS, did all the things that we talked about, right? Updated, brought everything current, built in a cross-region disaster recovery. Now they have PeopleSoft with a SaaS-like experience. And oh, by the way, it reduced their TCO for that PeopleSoft stack by 30%. Then we have City of Boston, which includes Boston Public Schools. This one's unique, not unique, this one's different as well in that they were sitting on a mainframe. So they were like, oh, we have PeopleSoft sitting on a mainframe. We've customized it. Is it even possible to take this to the AWS cloud and have a SaaS-like experience with PeopleSoft there? And the answer is yes, right? We're very tech savvy at ERPA, very tech deep. So we were able to rebuild their PeopleSoft stack on AWS, and all of a sudden they have a SaaS-like experience powered by Active Genie, right? Their SLAs went up. They have a DR recovery solution built in now. They're constantly adopting new features. So their feature adoption was improved by 50%, and their total TCO was improved by nearly 50%, a 40% improvement in the cost of running their PeopleSoft. So imagine that, PeopleSoft sitting on a mainframe at X dollars, now PeopleSoft sitting on the AWS cloud with improved performance, higher availability, the ability to scale, multi-region disaster recovery built in, accelerated feature adoption, and a SaaS-like experience. And oh, by the way, it's costing us half of what it used to, right? A great success story for another one of ERPA's customers. And the last one I'll mention is the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, only because, believe it or not, this was a new PeopleSoft deployment. So you rarely hear that in a sentence, but US MMA chose to deploy PeopleSoft. But what makes it unique is their very strict and rigid compliance requirements. So we were able to deploy PeopleSoft for US MMA, meeting strict FedRAMP security requirements, and deploy that on AWS GovCloud. So they have all the benefits of SaaS-like experience with PeopleSoft on AWS and meet and exceed all of the compliance requirements that could possibly be pressed into any institutional organization. So 3 unique examples of how ERPA has been helpful in modernizing PeopleSoft on AWS stack to deliver a SaaS-like experience. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Again, if you have any questions at all, or if you'd like to discuss this further, my contact information is here. Feel free to reach out to me, and I would be very happy to have a discussion with you at that time. Thank you for your time.
Awesome, Shawn. This is great. Fantastic stuff. Have I mentioned I'm really happy that you're on our team? It is great to have your level of expertise with us. So thanks so much for sharing all this today. Thank you to all of you who joined us today. We hope you found it helpful. While you didn't share any questions with us today, we really view this as the beginning of a conversation with you. So like Shawn said, feel free to reach out to us on this slide. You can see how to follow us on LinkedIn, get a hold of us through our website. And then as Shawn mentioned, he's been kind enough to include his own contact information here. Again, you'll receive an email in a few business days with links to the recording of the slides. You'll also receive an email survey right after the conclusion of this webinar. We'd be grateful for you to take just a moment to answer a few questions. That's it for now. Shawn, again, thanks. Great stuff, great information. I always enjoy listening to your incredibly great and helpful content. For the rest of you, look for more webinars to come on a variety of topics of interest to those using PeopleSoft. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.